Hey everybody, and welcome back to another Thomas Wooden Railway discussion. Most of the engines or pieces of rolling stock that I show off in this video series are very complex. They have different paint schemes, they have pieces from other engines, they have different chassis, but today's video is going to be on something a little bit simpler. Before you hear, I have three versions of normal Thomas, but you may notice they have some different expressions that you wouldn't normally find on a normal Thomas. Well, using some movie magic, let's transition to this scene and let's talk about where all of these faces came from. These customs were made by TurtlesAndThomas, and I want to give a shout out to him because he did a great job of taking the faces of the engines that you see in front of you and putting them on some normal Thomas donor bodies. So what you're looking at right now is the 2013 Adventures of Thomas 3-pack. I actually did a review of this a long time ago when it came out, and it was one of the first items that was released by Fisher-Price and Mattel when they acquired the Thomas Wooden Railway line back in 2013. On the left, we have a Snowplow Thomas with a face that I like to call angry or determined Thomas. Perhaps he's in the middle of a snowstorm and he's trying to get through. In the middle, we have a surprise face Thomas, and that's also a paint splattered Thomas. And to our right, we have a fish-covered Thomas, and I like to think that that face is a sad face. Thomas is not very happy that he's been covered in fish. On those previous engines I showed at the beginning of the video, you'll recognize those faces, but you'll notice that they've been stuck on normal Thomas bodies. So let's take a look and see how all of this happened. First off, for a custom like this, you have to have some donor bodies. And what I mean by that is you have to have these normal Thomas the Tank Engine bodies, which obviously come with a normal face. And when I asked TurtlesAndThomas to do this custom, I was thinking back to the 2013 review I did on the guys back here, and I was like, you know what? Those faces are really cool, but it's a shame that they're on such specific pieces of models. You know, I really like that determined Thomas face, but I may want to use him in a story where he doesn't have a snowplow. Or does Surprise Face Thomas really need to be paint splattered, or the same thing with Fishy Thomas, does he need to be covered in fish? So I approached TurtlesAndThomas with this idea. How about we cut those faces off of those engines and stick them on a normal Thomas body like this, so that potentially I could interswap the face changes amongst a Thomas and an episode of my series, and it looks like it's the same model, but the face has changed, almost like back to the model series of Thomas and Friends 30 plus years ago, where they would change the faces on the actual Thomas model used in the episodes. Now, I've kind of changed my stance on this. At the time, I was thinking about using these special engines in my series, but then I realized, well, it'd be kind of weird to give Thomas some special faces and not give all the other engines special faces, so I'm not going to be doing that, but I'm still very happy to have these customs in my collection. So what I did with TurtlesAndThomas, I had an extra 3-pack that you see right here, and I sent all three of those engines to TurtlesAndThomas, and then I had 3 normal Thomases, 2013 Fisher-Price Thomases, that I also sent him. And basically what happened is he took the face off of that Thomas and put it right here, and what we get is something that looks like that. So, having explained how this was taking place, I'm going to remove these engines and put back their original versions so that we can actually talk about the engines that we are focusing on in this discussion. So as you can tell, all of these Thomases are normal. They just have different expressions, and it kind of brings about just a little bit of magic that the model series had back in the day. So let's start with the one on the left here. As I like to call this is Determined or Angry Thomas. And this custom was very simple to do. I thought about doing it myself a couple of times, but at the time I was having TurtlesAndThomas make a bunch of different customs for me, so I just kind of rounded up a bunch of stuff and sent it all to him in one big shipment, and so that's why he ended up doing it. But what you guys can probably grasp from this idea is that we had this Snowplow Thomas over here. This is a licensed product by Fisher-Price and Mattel, and TurtlesAndThomas came along and he cut right behind the smoke box to where the face is, and then we had a normal donor Thomas with a happy smiling face, and TurtlesAndThomas did the same thing. He came along and cut the face off, and then you kind of make the best of both worlds and you get something that looks like this. I think this is a really good CGI expression of Thomas. That's the thing, is I've kind of called it, you know, determined or angry, and that's the thing, I'm not really sure which one it is. And he doesn't look extremely upset, his mouth is kind of open, so it looks like he's breathing heavy. You know, he's pulling like a long line of trucks, like, I think I can, I think I can. Or, you know, he's just had a very long day or something like that, and he's a little bit exhausted. But he doesn't look so angry that it's like, oh, Thomas was furious or something like that. So I like this face because it seems to be open to interpretation, and I kind of like that. So with all of the Thomases I'm going to show off here, they were just normal Thomases with a normal smiling face. Turtles and Thomas came along and cut the faces off, and then he applied them masterfully back onto the original donor body. So now I get something like this, where I have a normal Thomas, and all of a sudden, in an instant, he changes to, let's just call him Determined Thomas. He has something he wants to do. So that's the first part of this custom. Let's take a look at the one in the middle. This is probably the face I like the best. It is Surprise Face Thomas, because remember, the original donor body came from this. Thomas just got splattered in paint, and this is a really cool product if you don't have it. Unfortunately, it seems as though both versions of Adventures of Thomas, both the Learning Curve and the Mattel one, have become rather hard to find. And so I don't know if you get an extra one of these if you want to take the time and cut the faces off. But I think this turned out really, really well. So we have a normal Thomas here with a surprise expression. This was a face that was not included in that first version of Adventures of Thomas that I mentioned by Learning Curve. There was a paint splatter Thomas, but he had a different expression. That was a sad expression. Unfortunately, I never thought about cutting the face off of that one because he has some paint running down his forehead and onto his nose that you could probably get off somehow. But this one was a lot easier. Maybe it's not as realistic because Thomas is covered in paint and somehow his face has somehow escaped having paint splattered on it, but it makes for a perfect custom. And I will say my inspiration for doing something like this was rooted in a lot of the modelers in the Thomas community. There's a lot of people who run the Bachmann trains, the Hornby trains, and I'm not going to try and act like I know a lot about like the terminology and everything, but actually, for those who don't have Bachmann trains, they are very similar in size to Wooden Railway. They're obviously just a lot more detailed. And so I believe a couple of people, most notably off of the top of my head, I know there's others, but most notably, Caleb Train came along, and I'm pretty sure he cut off all of the faces that you see here, and he used this on his Bachmann or HO trains that he runs probably as part of his YouTube channel, and then just probably for fun. So that's where the idea came from, and I was like, you know what, that's pretty smart, but let's just return the Wooden Railway faces to their Wooden Railway counterparts, and this is what we get. So our final face in this discussion is sort of this sad, almost longing face. It comes from Thomas and the Stinky Fish. The reason that I had Turtles and Thomas cut off just the faces and not the smoke boxes for this exact reason, because there's a plastic mold of fish right here that you would have to somehow remove, and also this smoke box is covered in paint, and then on the Winter Wonderland Thomas, it's covered in snow. So that's one of the reasons why the whole smoke box wasn't taken apart and just the face was cut off. I also believe Turtles and Thomas had some plans for the bodies of the faces that he cut off. Like he'd cut the face off of this and put it on my train and send it back to me. But then he had something brewing with the body. I think specifically he was doing something with this Snowplow version of Thomas. Maybe he just wanted the Snowplow on the bottom. But anyway, that's why we just cut the faces off. I shouldn't say we, that's why just Turtles and Thomas only cut the faces off rather than the entire smoke box, because on all three versions there is something going on the smoke box over here. So this is a very simple custom. I think if you run across maybe some used or secondhand versions of these characters, like at a thrift shop or kind of like a train show and the faces, you know, are in good condition, I would recommend picking them up, and as long as you don't mind potentially destroying, you know, not only one, you have your donor body here, but then potentially your the face where the other, or excuse me, the body where the face is going to go onto. As long as you don't mind that risk, this is a pretty easy custom to do. Basically, you're just swapping out some faces, and the only reason I didn't swap out the faces is, like I said, Turtles and Thomas had a plan for the bodies that I sent him. So this makes me really happy. Like I said, the original plan when I had this done a couple of years ago, and yes, it's been a while since this was done, my original plan was to include these in my series, and basically it would be just a fun way to transition between your happy, smiling Thomas face, sort of a sad face, a surprised face, and then maybe like an angry or determined face. However, when it comes to my series, I'm particular about a lot of things, and I got to thinking, well, then, like, what if Edward is angry? Or what if Gordon is sad? Or something like that. And I just got to thinking, I was like, you know what? Just for consistency's sake, I'm not going to do that, but I'm still very glad that I had this custom done because it allows me to have just some custom engines in my collection, and it's really cool after, you know, having this for a very long time and always admiring the surprised face on it. It's kind of cool to be able to enjoy that face on a normal Thomas body. Without having, you know, a variant of Thomas like Paint Splattered or Fishy Thomas or Winter Wonderland Thomas. So I'm very happy with how these turned out. Once again, these were made by Turtles and Thomas, and I'm pretty sure he just came along with a saw or an X-Acto knife and just cut the faces off, and apparently it's very simple to do, and I should try it sometime, honestly. But once again, I explained, you know, Turtles and Thomas was doing some other stuff for me, so I just had him do everything at once. And Turtles and Thomas, he's kind of a weird guy. I think he enjoys cutting faces off of trains, so I kind of let him have his fun. But I think that's going to wrap up this Thomas Wooden Railway discussion. Hopefully, if I've explained everything in sufficient enough detail, but if I missed something or if you have another question, feel free to let me know. I think it's a pretty simple custom considering all of the other different types of modifications that that other people have done to Thomas engines and everything. This is actually on the very simple side. We're just swapping out some faces, but I wanted to show them off and give them their own video because it still is a very cool switch. So once again, thank you, Turtles and Thomas. Be sure to check out his channel below, and I think I'll leave it at that. So guys, thank you so much for watching, and of course, like always, leave your comments below, and I'll get back to you as quick as I can.